Welcome back to MOMnation Unscripted. Now, a word from our sponsor.
Moms are always on the move, and the City of Mesa understands getting where you need to go quickly and safely isn't just a priority, it's an expectation. That's why we are proactive with our transportation plans. Check out the 2020 Transportation Bond Program at mesaaz.gov/Mesa Moves to learn about Mesa's plans to grow our roadways and bike paths, improve congestion, and make commuting safer for everyone.
Well, hey, everybody. We are back for another season. Super stoked, as always, for this season. We've got some changes, ladies. So this is season 4, episode 1 of MOMnation Unscripted. Can't believe we're already in season 4. Time totally flies. But we've got some changes. So welcome, Sherry and Jenny.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
It's doing well.
Yeah.
It's Tuesday. It's Taco Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday
So
that kind of feels like a Monday. Like I don't know. It's a weird week.
Seriously,
It totally
that's why I didn't say the day, because I was thinking about what day it was.
I'm not sure. No, totally get that. And, of course, we're moms. So I don't know about you guys, but my days sort of bleed into each other. So, it's normal life for us.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit teeny weeny bit bummed that we weren't able to go live today. Unfortunately, Facebook and Zoom is just not wanting to cooperate with us because I wanted to celebrate our changes and our 2 new hostesses of the show being on today. So we'll have to celebrate you another way.
Yeah. A little bit of a bummer, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll have all season to celebrate.
So true. So just so that you guys know, our audience out there, Beth Griffith did step down for this season. She's got a bunch of stuff going on for her. Like, crazy hair girl is what, I think when I think of her, because I think she's dyeing it a different color now. So it was like crazy pink, and now who knows what color she's going to be. So when I think of her, I think, oh, it's crazy hair girl. But crazy hair girl has a lot of things popping in her business right now. And so she is dropping off for this season. We hope to see her back. Maybe we'll have her back as a guest or something in the future. But thank you so much, Sherry and Jenny, for stepping up and being the co-host for the show. I appreciate it.
Always a good time when we get to do calls together.
So exactly. True. So we all 3 of us just came off of fall break. Jenny and I have the same fall break because our kids both go to Kyrene. Sherry, is fall break the same week for you?
No.
So you were on fall break last week?
No, we weren't really on break. We just took the kids on vacation because military life, when she gets leave, we take it.
So you were like, screw it. I don't care about breaks. We're just going to do what we want.
Well, we took the computers with us with the intention of like, hey, we're going to do online school in the morning and then we'll have fun. And then I think day 2, I was like, I'm calling you guys out. Let's just have fun.
That's awesome. I mean, they're only little for so long, right? And
exactly.
Really is a couple of days. I mean, I'm all for schoolwork, all for homework and that kind of thing, but really is a couple of days going to super impact their education where, enjoying family right now is just everything, man. You know what I mean? And that, I feel like that teaches them more.
Well, we definitely had like some life lessons that we got to learn on this trip. So, I mean, they weren't like jeopardizing their education.
Right. No, I totally
memories
agree.
last forever.
It's true. And those bonds, and that's like the important stuff, that's the kind of stuff that they're going to carry on. They're going to share with their children and their grandchildren and that kind of thing. I mean, math, you can do that later.
Yeah, I feel. It was actually really cool. I didn't even get to tell you and Jenny, the park that my dad used to take Peyton and Ariana when they were little. Mm-hmm. Rory got to experience that same park this time. So it was really cute to just see 13 years later, 10 years later, my youngest now playing there. So that was really fun.
Oh, and that was in San Diego?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. How about you, Jenny? How was your fall break?
Well, I pretty much worked through all of it, but then we got to end it with a little camping trip, which it's funny. I didn't realize until I saw the Facebook memories, but this is our 4th fall break camping trip in a row we've done together with the Lamberts. So that was kind of cool seeing the memories pop up and realizing that we have a little tradition going. So that was fun.
I totally love it. And it's like, you know, I look at our kids and I'm like, oh my God, how is it that you guys are so big? Remember when they all met and they were teeny weeny and could like barely talk? And now
chubby.
And chubby, and yeah, and now they're huge and like have their own opinions. And the funniest thing though, Jenny, that I noticed is we don't age, they do. How does that happen? I don't understand.
That's so true. So true. We're just blessed, I guess.
Totally blessed.
I want to have that problem, guys.
You have that problem. You don't age either.
Yeah.
You're right there with us. You could sit at our table, wear pink the whole bit. Like,
Perfect.
totally good.
Tomorrow.
Awesome. All right, ladies. Well, again, so excited for season 4, episode 1. And I'm super stoked about this topic because Jessica, I'm going to tell you a little story about Jenny and I. So I don't want to say I was like anti-politics because that's not true. I just didn't really pay attention and it just wasn't part of my, day to day. And then I meet Jenny like a gazillion years ago and she is super into it. And she's like, she knows the candidates and she knows what's going on and she knows the topics on the table. And she started to get me really excited about it. So over the last couple of years, I've really taken a liking and, started to dive into politics a little bit. But Jenny and I were talking the other day, it's easy to know who the president and the vice president, like it's easy to know, okay, these are the hats that they wear. Here's what they're responsible for. Here's what they do. But when you bring that down to the local level, there are a lot of people that are wearing different hats that have different responsibilities at the local level that I don't know about you, Jenny and Sherry, but I had no, dare I say, does that make me sound silly? Like I had no idea existed. And so thank you so much, Jessica. Jessica with the City of Mesa is here with us today to give us a little politics 101 and share a bit about, a little bit more in detail what those leaders do and what they're responsible for. So Jessica, it's all you, girl. Take it away.
Well, thank you, ladies, for letting me join you today. And I think to your point, you kind of don't realize everything that goes around you politically because we're hearing these messages of president, vice president, all these big things, but the local level is really where it's at. And I'm slightly biased since I work here, but the ability to affect change is really, really great at the local level. And it's so nice to share this message of how we learn how to do that. So I'm really excited to do that.
Awesome. I appreciate it so much. Oh, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to share a little bit about myself, my role at the City of Mesa. I'm a city council assistant, so I work directly for an elected official. And Mesa is broken down into districts. Some cities are broken up into wards. And then the elected official just really represents that geographic area within the community. So.
Awesome. And you kind of are touching into what my first question is, and that's really like, what are the seats, first of all? So, I mean, we know we have the mayor, right? It's about as far as I go. I know there are other people under him, but like, take me from there. What is the mayor? What does he do? What's his deal? And then who's underneath him?
Sure. So typically the mayor is going to be your non-district specific, so represent the entire community, city, town. So they're they're elected at large. So for living in Mesa, anyone in Mesa can vote for the position of mayor when that position is up for election. The council member level would just be below that. So then that's the region specific. So they represent a certain number in the population based on the census, which is going on this year too. So it's really important that we all complete that information because then we know how many people can be divided into these districts. So the council member then represents a very specific area in the community. And they can only be voted on by the people who live in that district. So we don't always vote for everybody, but when your elected official's seat is open, then you get the opportunity to vote for them specifically, as opposed to the entire community voting for the mayor. So in Mesa, the the form of government we have as a city management mayor council form of government. So we vote for mayor and council, but then our city manager is underneath them, and he is a hired position. So the council then hires that position. Everyone under the city manager is then managed by him or her. And they're not elected positions. So sort of like a tiered structure. If you think of your city employees, your city manager, your council members, your mayor.
So are the mayors, sorry, Sherry, I see, I'm an interrupter, Jess, you probably have already figured that out. I'm a total interrupter.
For that.
I did, it's so true. Go, Sherry, go, you go.
I was just going to ask for councilmen, how long are those positions held?
So in Mesa, and it's going to be different based on your city charter or your community you live in, they're 4-year terms, and you can hold 2 4-year terms. If you're appointed, and this is where the extras come in, so you can potentially be appointed midterm if a council member vacates their seat or if something else happens and they leave their position, you can be appointed midterm. So you could potentially serve 9 years, 10 years, but you could only be voted on twice, so 2 4-year terms. So after that second 4-year term, you would term out. Same thing for mayor too.
Are they ever up for election at the same time, or is there a certain time for mayor, certain time for city council? Like, how does that all go?
Yeah, so it's spaced out every 2 years. Half of the group or some of the group will be up for election, and in the following 2 years, it'll be the other half. So you're not completely vacating every seat potentially all at once.
And so you had said that if there is a vacant spot in the middle of a term, somebody can be appointed. So in the case of a few years ago, we don't need to name any names, but in the case of a few years ago, there was a council member that unfortunately had to step down. How does that happen once they have to step down? Like, what happens next?
Sure, and for all different reasons, the seat becomes vacant. What would happen is you could then apply. So you could submit a resume, you could submit an application, and you can be in the running to hold this position. And then the council would vote on whether or not you would hold that seat. So you're not necessarily elected if it's an interim fill, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Jenny, did you want to say something? I saw you moving toward your mic, and I'm an interrupter.
Yeah, well, I'm curious what the qualifications are. How does one become qualified for such a position?
So it's actually, I think, such a position to be valued, because it really is just being an active member of the community. So many of the elected officials I've talked to just are so passionate about their community. And if you look at their backgrounds, they've done everything under the sun. You know, some are previous lawyers. Some, my elected official I work for is amazing and got a degree in fashion and became a professional fisher person. And it really just starts from that passion to serve your community. It's not necessarily a plug and play job description. So, and they've received degrees in many different fields. Some not following the traditional school path either. So it can vary across the board.
Okay, one clarification question. So just an active member, but they do have to have a bachelor's degree at minimum, or?
Nope.
Okay.
It's not for the elected positions, because these are the positions then that the community chooses to represent them. So I think you need to be over 18, maybe. You need to live in the district that you represent too, the community you represent, at least at the local level. So our districts are divided, and then those representatives live in those areas.
And so this isn't a volunteer position though, right? I mean, it's an actual job, like you actually get paid as a city council member.
Yeah, they're classified as a part-time employment position, I think is how we classify it. It doesn't ever work out part-time, I'm sure, like we all know, but it is a paid position. You're part of the organization.
So is there, like, just out of curiosity, and I don't know if this is public information or not, but like, how much do they get paid? Is that a question I can ask? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So for their position, as well as all city employees, that's public information. So I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I know we publish all of that on our specific website. And as public information, citizens, anybody is also open to request any of that information.
You said that Mesa had you called it a certain name for their setup. Is it common for different cities to have different types of setups, or is this the basics of your city leadership sort of setup?
My understanding is it's pretty standard, but it is up to each community. So in the Valley here, Gilbert, Chandler, Mesa, Scottsdale, we're all set up really similar. Now, my family in Wisconsin has a completely different form of government in their tiny town they live in. So it just depends. And it's possible some of those positions are volunteer positions elsewhere, but I know in the Valley they're actual employee positions. And so as our form of mayor, council, city management, that's just delineating our structure. So the mayor then representing all of council, council representing its individual districts, and then our staff and city management working for the residents, for the constituents.
And so you would be qualified as staff because you work for one of the elected candidates.
Correct, yeah. So we're not elected as our role as staff, just the council members and mayor.
So do you play a part in elections and things like that, or is that totally separate from your job?
So that would be separate. Anything related to when anyone comes up for election, as city staff, we are removed from that process. So it gets really busy, as you can imagine, during campaign season for elected officials.
I have a question though. So obviously with you working within this role, was this a passion of yours beforehand, or have you learned to love it? Or, tell us about that. How did you get into this?
Great question, thank you. So yes, I will resort to say I was a huge political nerd in college, and I got my bachelor's in political science and, followed all the campaigns eons ago when that was going on. So it was always a field I liked. I've actually worked for the City of Mesa for almost a decade and a half in different departments. So it is very rewarding for me that this is now the role I hold, because it was something I was always interested in and then worked my way up to this role. So both. Like it a lot. Political junkie, however, sometimes I got to turn the TV off too. Too much news gets you. My passion for this position specifically is just serving my local community. There's nothing more rewarding than knowing you helped your neighbor. And I live here, I grew up here. So it's really great to be able to see your community grow, change, improve. Even if it's the smallest way we're helping, the constituent aspect of this job is one of my favorites. So.
And you can totally tell when you talk about it. Like, you can totally tell there's passion there, which is amazing. In any job you do, you hope to have that kind of passion. So that's awesome. If somebody were to want to apply to become a city council member or even the mayor, what steps would they take to do that? I mean, I know you mentioned submit a resume, but like, to who? Like, if I wanted to do it today, what do I do?
So the application would be just for the vacancy. If you did want to run for the position, you would have to submit a letter of intent to our city clerk. And so all that's doing is just saying, I intend to run during this election, or whichever date that is. And then once you submit that, there's usually a deadline. You have so long to get as many signatures as you need. So I think for, it could be anywhere from a couple hundred to a couple thousand. And once you get that level of signature, then you are put on the ballot.
And then that's when the campaign trail begins.
Yes. And
sorry, I wanted to say campaign trail.
One of the big things I learned, because I was thinking, oh, local, it can't be, how hard can local be, right? It's not the president. You're not, traveling the country, but it's a lot of boots on the ground. It's a lot of really diligent, hard work. I've seen a lot of these elected officials, knocking on every door when we could knock on doors, and getting out, meeting everyone. And depending on how many candidates you have running in an election, it can be a really close race. So if you don't win in the primary, which is held earlier in the year, you would go to the general election. So then you're almost campaigning twice. So you're going for that first vote to see if you get enough votes to win in the primary. If you are then tied or don't pull the majority, you go to the general election. So it is grueling, 12 months of campaigning, and I'm sure putting up signs. I see signs, all the signs we see on the street corners.
Oh my gosh, everywhere. And so I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume that you have volunteered for a campaign probably in the past. Have you?
Back in college, I helped a little bit, yeah.
So you kind of have an idea of like what that looks like. For instance, if I wanted to get involved and it didn't necessarily want to go like, applying for the city council position, but it revs my engines and politics excites me and I want to help out my community. So I want to volunteer. What is the best way or the best ways to plug in and volunteer and kind of, quench that thirst a little bit?
So there's actually, at the local level, there's a lot of ways you can participate in your government. Boards and commissions are a great way to sort of get your foot in the door, and there have been quite a few elected officials that follow that path. So, for example, we have a planning and zoning board, we have a historic preservation board, we have human resources advisory board. So what these boards consist of are community members who come together and meet regularly, and it becomes advisory to the council. So for planning and zoning, for example, we have some great community leaders who are passionate about serving the community, about being engaged. They make choices and recommendations that then they forward to council, and council can make those educated decisions, informed decisions based on the work of these boards and committees. So I would recommend, if you have any interest in getting involved in your community, it's a great first step, especially if you have some of those personal passions. Maybe you're an architect by trade, maybe you're, and you don't have to be, but if that's something that excites you, maybe you're really active in education, and so you want to hold a position on a board, or maybe a public school board is a great way to get involved. We're not tied in Mesa to our school board, but it's another elected position. So if you're really passionate about making sure policies aren't in place that you feel strongly about, that's a great first step too. And the boards and commissions do take applications, and there are length of terms, so you have to wait until there's a vacancy, but it's a really good first step. If you just wanted to volunteer and give back to the community, our city has a community services department that connects agencies that need volunteers, projects with those people. So we're also a really good outlet for if you have a special skill, maybe you're a carpenter or something like that, and you want to donate your time, we can connect you with projects or agencies that might need that assistance.
So I'm curious, when an official gets elected, when does the hiring process start for their staff? Because I would assume that they don't want to hire somebody when they don't know yet whether they will be elected. And then to follow up on that question, once that elected official is elected, the next 4-year term comes around and say they don't get elected, does everyone lose their job? What happens?
No, so for our structure, and I know it can be different at maybe the state level or the federal level where they take their staff with them. In our city, we as staff hold that position. So it's not necessarily like when an elected official comes in, they're bringing in a whole new team. So we're that consistent basis that can inform the decisions council and mayor make just based on our experience and expertise. So say the election is in November. So we would know a winner relatively quickly, hopefully. That role wouldn't come into play until the beginning of January. So the person in their seat would finish out their term, and then in January, the new official would start.
So working there for 15 years, right? A decade and a half.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked for then someone that maybe wasn't your choice? How do you manage that? Like when you have strong political beliefs, which I feel like you do, if you're a political junkie, that was your education. How do you deal with that when it's your job and you love it, but then maybe you're working for somebody that has totally different ideas than you, and this is your home, this is your community, and they're impacting it in a way that maybe you don't see fit? How do you deal with that?
Great question. I am very fortunate. I think in Mesa as a whole, we have a really great body of elected leaders. And one of the important things you have to keep coming back to is there's a reason people hold this role or want to hold this role and fight to hold this role, and that's to serve their community in the best way that they think would serve it the best. So when you keep coming back to what the intention and motivation is of holding this role, I think it makes it, we can find that equitability. So as a staff member, my political preference isn't what drives this role. My driver is that ability to serve the community. So there is that common ground, regardless of our political beliefs. And I find that maybe that's why I like the local level a little bit better, because we're taking the politics out of it a little bit more. It's not so divisive. We're not this two-party system. We really are working together to serve the community as a whole. Now, everyone has their own individual beliefs, direction they want to see their community go. But I always try to come back to what's our intention, what's our motivation for being here, and it almost always aligns. So it is just to serve the community to the best of our ability, and I think it becomes, again, I'm getting all fired up about it, but it really is easy to see common ground. And once you something I enjoy about this job too is you really see how passionate these elected leaders are about their community, even if that's not my personal preference. It's so inspiring to see. They know their neighbors' names. They know what business is going in down the street. They're just so active and engaged, and it's inspiring to see.
Well, now that Sherry broke that ice, I have party questions for you too, or maybe just question. So I'm curious if party does come into play. It sounds like a little bit less on the local level than it does, on the national level. And is there a certain amount of, does the two-party thing make a difference? So can you only elect, 4 Dems and 4 Republicans, or independents or whatever? Is there some sort of formula there, or is it just based upon who runs for that particular district?
Yeah, I think more towards your second point there. So it is bipartisan. I mean, you can run on a platform, you can run on your beliefs, but I guess there's a caveat, right? So maybe, for example, everybody running in the community is conservative, and there is no competition in that way of conservative liberal. So and I do think you start to see candidates that really represent the community. So maybe Austin, Texas is an incredibly liberal environment. Obviously not everyone, but you could say it's more liberal. And you might have a community that's just a bit more traditionally conservative. So I think it is just a representation of who lives where.
But there's no sort of combination of how many of a certain political party needs to be involved, that kind of thing.
No, not at all.
Well, that's cool. So back to the campaign trail. Sorry. It's just so exciting. Of course, it's what's happening and blah, blah, blah. So if somebody wanted to involve themselves at that level as a volunteer, do you just pick a candidate and say, hey, I got some time. Can I come make some phone calls for you? Or how does that work?
So again, not necessarily supporting campaigns, but just my own personal knowledge of how campaigning works. Yeah, if you have a candidate that you follow in your community and you feel very passionately about helping and supporting their success, I would reach out. I would say reach out. It can't hurt. And if
Maybe she'll come back to us. Totally fine.
Internet. So yeah, if you do want to get involved in your local elections, I would definitely just say find that candidate that really resonates with you, their policies and issues, and just reach out to them directly, see how you can be of assistance.
So that brings us to our next topic, and what a great transition that was, Jess. I bet you didn't even know you transitioned it. But that's communicating with local elected officials. Jenny, Sherry, I don't know if you guys feel this way, and I've never really had this conversation with people, I guess I've just always thought that they're just up there, and it's like they don't want to hear from us little people, and we can't communicate with them. Like, that isn't true. So how can you get more involved, communicate with your local elected official? Like, what are the steps you would take?
And I don't think you're alone at all in that thought. I actually hear that thought from a lot of people. And if there's a myth I could bust, it'd be that they're not removed from us. That the communication is there. It just takes doing a little bit of your own research, get clear on what your questions are or the connections you want to make, and then reach out, send an email. So look online. I know for Mesa, all of our council and mayor email address is online. Pull up an email, give a phone call, start from somewhere. So if you have a question, if there's an issue you're really passionate about, do a little bit of that research and bring it forward. Something I think that's really impactful is making that communication personal. With all that's been going on this year in our country and our world, there's so many issues, right? There's 5G, there's police funding, there's the environment, there's so many issues. And if you're connect the issue to what you hold personal to your values, I think that communication becomes more meaningful. So maybe you see a sign go up in your community that there's a plan development going in, proposed plan development, and you feel really strongly about how that could impact your community. Reach out, send an email, find who your elected officials are and reach out. They are always, I don't say always, but there are, for the most part, they really, really, really want to hear from the community. So again, going back to their motivation for holding this role is to be of service to the community. So their input that community members can give to them is invaluable. And again, any myth I could bust is don't think that your voice doesn't count. Don't think that you don't have a voice, and speak up, right? Share that voice.
So how do you know where to start? If there's an issue that's important to you, who do you contact first? Where's your probably your lowest level and work your way up, or where do you go first?
So I mean, you could send an email right to the mayor. You could make a phone call right to the mayor. At least in Mesa, our staff and elected officials are really accessible. And it's something that I value and admire, is how accessible our leaders are. So starting at the top is totally fine. Sometimes it gets hard to swim down at the bottom and figure out who the right person is to talk to. So sometimes starting at the top and sending that email, we can connect you. One of my main roles is that connector. So how do I connect the questions that you have and answers you're looking for? How do I connect you to the right people who have them? So starting at the top is just fine. If you have that specific question already in place, maybe it's about utility or development, we do have departments. All that information is online too, on who to contact.
That gives my military background like anxiety, just jumping the chain of command and going to the top. So I'm glad that Jenny asked that, but then you're like, yeah, it's okay. But yeah, that would give me anxiety.
I'm with you. I see that.
Jessica, you were mentioning, being able to just reach out to these elected officials. And it reminded me of something, Katie and Jenny, I'm sure you remember this. I'm not going to say names, but a couple of years ago, seems, we had a member of MOMnation that needed some help. And so a lot of us did email in to the elected official. You guys remember? Okay. Because we just wanted to share, just some information about this member of the community and how much of an asset they were as a family. So just remembering back, hey, this really could come in to play for like normal members of society. And you would never know. And then another time with my military background, I know that I needed an endorsement. Oh no, we lost Jessica.
So sorry about that.
It's okay. So we had, as a community, we all reached out to this elected official for that member to just talk about how much of an asset they were, and hopefully help. And then another time that I had to reach out to an elected official was for military endorsement. So it's just interesting to try to think, like, when would we as just a regular member of society ever need to reach out? Maybe that will help other people see that they are just people and you can reach out to them for different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you consider them as your neighbor, it becomes a little bit easier to reach out. If you think of your local elected leader as the person who lives next door to you, who visits your favorite restaurant too.
Yeah, this conversation has been super helpful, just opening up my eyes to a lot of the inner workings and, a lot of those details. But that is a huge main point for me. And my takeaway from today's call is that, yeah, they're just normal people. They're actually in place, probably very passionately so, to serve the community. Guess who I am? The community. So why shy away? If I've got something to say, I should be saying it. So thank you for the little wind beneath my wings there. I appreciate that. Quick question for you. Another one is, what about like city council meetings and things like that? Is that something that happens regularly? If so, when? How is it televised, if it is? And is that something that a normal citizen can become involved in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll say typically, so pre-COVID, we were meeting, we meet twice a month anyways, twice a month council meetings and then regular weekly meetings. So now it's become virtual, just, to limit in person, but we broadcast our council meetings on YouTube and Facebook. So if maybe you didn't know where to start with your communication or know where to start with your local government, watch a meeting, see what gets talked about, see how your elected leaders prioritize and discuss. So again, like the political junkie in me watches community meetings and public meetings, and but it's a great way to get your foot in the door to what goes on in your community. the boards I was referencing before, they have meetings available to view too. And when we do get to go back in person, attend a meeting, come and sit in the audience and see how the dynamic works. Something that's really fun, and I know we all like working with, is when Boy Scout troops or youth from classes come to attend the council meetings. Sometimes it's just of general interest, and people will bring their kids, and maybe they lead the Pledge of Allegiance one day at a council meeting. And I think it's one of, all of our favorite parts, is to just see that community advocacy start at such a young age.
Yeah, that's totally cool. Gosh, Jess, this is just so much info. And I don't know about you, Jenny. We'll probably text after and be like, what board do you want to go check out and see what we can get on? You know what I mean? Because that's, I'm all newly passionate, so we'll see where that takes me. But it's been pretty cool. It's been awesome to follow the big campaigns that are happening right now. It's just so fascinating to me. So thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us today. Is there anything that you would like to share about specifically what Mesa's got going on? Anything that you'd like our voters out there to remember for this election season?
Not necessarily for the election season, but just to know that the city overall and the elected leaders are accessible, available, and that your input matters. So, reach out however that works for you. Maybe it's speaking at a council meeting about an issue you're passionate on. We give the community a chance to speak during those meetings. So if there's something you're passionate about, just get out there and share that with everyone. And I think it'll really benefit the community.
Girls trip to a city council meeting.
Yeah, right.
I'm more, I never thought to go, I guess, before. I didn't realize how open they were, or how, that they actually want your involvement. And so now I'm more inclined to actually go and have my voice be heard.
This was super enlightening, Jessica. For us being a military family, we move all the time. And so honestly, I just didn't care about local politics because we're not members of the community for that long. And so I just felt like, what can we bring, or what can we change in such short periods of time? But I definitely think that this was so helpful. And I think that even in maybe short windows, 2-3 years, we could still make impacts for that community and at least raise awareness for things that we see in the community as military families. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring a great point. You actually get to see how so many different communities work, and then pick the things that are amazing and possibly even take those forward as suggestions for where you do end up moving.
Yeah, you said that different communities are very different even in the management side. So yeah, I mean, I'm always telling my wife, hey, the Army's not doing it right. The Navy did it this way. I think you need to tell them to change it. So I could do the same thing, right? From this community to that one.
Yeah, we all learn so much, and we all have those specialties and passions that live within us, and it can lend to just a more rich community.
You need to start having some community meetings on base, Cher.
Right. We're going to have mom play dates at the community, the meetings.
There you go. Talking politics. Excuse me. All right, guys. Well, here's what we'd like, love. I said that both in the same word. We would like it and we would love it. For absolutely everybody out there to please go to whatever podcast platform is your favorite. We like iTunes in particular. But please like us, subscribe to us, download these episodes, because then that way we can get the real news, right? Real news is kind of important. It's a kind of touchy subject lately, but we can get the real news out to the people that need to hear it. And this has been so enlightening. I know tons of people off the top of my head that I know will absolutely love this information, will eat it up, will probably get more involved in their communities because of it. So if you know of anybody out there that could use this information that we provide on a weekly basis, we are here every week at noon Arizona time. I know that's about to change here whenever the rest of the world change the clocks. So we just call it Arizona time. And thank you so much again for our amazing guest, Jessica Potter with the City of Mesa. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks for having me.